Hey guys, Man here, and we're back with another episode of our Modern Meta Breakdown. So I really appreciate all the comments and love that you guys have been given for the previous episodes we've done. We've done at least 4 weeks now. Lots of different decks that we've been able to see. We've got a whole playlist set up on YouTube, youtube.com/nanman, for those that have missed it. There'll also be a link down below for all of you guys to check out. Now, last week was all about the storm, all about the spells. We had Pure Steel Paladin and our blue-red gifts storm. So this week we're going to shift gears a little bit, move away from the spells, and we're going to talk about the creatures, the big dumb dudes. 2 decks in particular that we're going to talk about today, both running that Eldrazi Menace, who's crushed the Pro Tour, crushed the modern meta about a year ago, before they decided to ban our Eye of Ugin, which was great, very much needed. But now there's 2 decks that have risen from the ashes of this, and we're talking about Eldrazi Tron and Bant Eldrazi today. So tried and true Eldrazi fashion, you're going to see very consistent with this sort of list here. Creature-based, land-based spells, more or less, are going to be the same across the board. Now, does run all 3 of the Urza lands because, hey, it's called Tron Eldrazi for a reason. So we've got Power Plant, Tower, and Mine in there. For those that don't remember, if you have all 3, you get 7 mana off of it. The Tower gives you 3. Let me put my fingers up so you guys can see it. And the Power Plant and the Mine both give you 2. So, pretty cool to see. Of course, runs the Temple, gonna get 2 to activate your Eldrazi's or cast those spells that are Eldrazi spells, so that is pretty nice. Does run some basics in there, waste, in case you get Ghost Quartered, in case there's some removal or some aspect like that going on. You have answers to help still continue to cast your spells. This version is running its own options to destroy lands, Tech Edge, Ghost Quarters, and then of course just a singleton Seagate Wreckage for some potential to draw some cards. Creature base though, Thought Knot Seer, Reality Smasher, Matter Reshaper, those 3 Eldrazi's are going to be consistent across the Eldrazi Trons list. Like 9 times out of 10, they should have a playset of each one. Sometimes you'll see like, oh, maybe I'll do a 3 of Matter Reshaper or something like that, but you will always see 4 Reality Smashers and 4 Thought Knot Seer because they are some of the best Eldrazi's to be playing. Matter Reshaper works really well in this list because it costs 3 for a 3/2, helps you get a land off it if it dies, or draws into a threat. So, very helpful. Of course, Reality Smasher costs 5 for a 5/5, trample and haste, so you immediately can swing in with it as soon as you play it. And if you're trying to have your opponent remove it, say they're going to path it with Path to Exile, they also have to discard a card. So that's just a nice little stipulation added into it. Thought Knot Seer, of course, 4 mana for a 4/4, exiles a card from your opponent's hand, and when it dies, they draw a card, but probably not going to die that easily. There are 2 creatures in here. Now, one is a new one that we're going to talk about, but one that is a consistent one across the board, Endbringer. Not always running 3. Sometimes you'll see a little bit less of that, but it is a really good card. Costs 6 for a 5/5. He untaps during each player's untap step and does have some activated abilities that are really sweet. Deals damage to target creature or player just by tapping it. Pay 1 waste. Target creature can't block or attack this turn. Pay 2. Tap it. Draw a card. So, hey, can refill my hand. Can ping off that annoying creature. Oh, that guy can't block this turn. You know, all relevant abilities here. The other one, our new one, from Aether Revolt, Walking Ballista. You have these Tron lands. It's easy to make this guy pretty large. And you can just basically say, I'm going to answer any creature that you play. I'm going to answer any Planeswalker you play by just activating the ability and dealing 1 damage. You could also just kill somebody off with it too. Once you started swinging in with your Reality Smasher, your Thought Knot Seer, playing a Walking Ballista there for 4 later on in the game, for 5 later on in the game, you can just be like, alright, here's 5 damage to the face after a swing in for Reality Smasher, and you're dead. But Endbringer and Walking Ballista work beautifully with Basilisk Collar. Of equipped creature has Death Touch and Lifelink. So that means that 1 damage that Endbringer would be doing, that Walking Ballista would do, is now enough to kill any creature. Death Touch. Any amount of damage is enough to kill it. So, sorry, you wanted to play all your creatures? Not going to work. So that is a new thing that we're seeing. Some people have tried out the Basilisk Collar with Endbringer before, but now it doesn't make much sense not to run that package in your 75. So that is something you're going to see. We even see an extra one in the board for this list here. Batterskull is one of the ones that you're going to be seeing as well. It's easy to cast. Lifelink can be important here. Vigilance is nice. And hey, I'll just equip it onto my Reality Smasher. What are you going to do now? Like, now I'm swinging 9, Vigilance, Trample, Lifelink. Sorry. That's one of the ones that is flexible, whether you're having it in the main or you're having it in the side. That's completely up to you. You know, some removals in here. Dismember, All Is Dust. Got some Ratchet Bombs in there. And Atticus has come to visit. Some ways to find some of our lands. Expedition Map. Mind Stone, we see some of our lists that are running. Of course, you can get basically colorless mana off it, or just draw a card later on. So again, just helping you out in that regard. Relic, kind of dealing with those graveyard effects, as well as having that ability to draw a card. So those are, again, consistent stuff that you're going to see on a lot of lists. Sideboards can be tiered towards your meta kind of thing. A lot of artifact stuff that you're going to want to see. Chalice of the Void is one of those sweet cards that can be run in a lot of different lists. This list, of course, is running for them sideboard, but we've seen a lot that are running main board. And we're going to talk about our next one that is opting for them in the main board. You see a lot less spells in the main board for this list in particular. And this is also one of the lists that is trying out Planeswalkers. Now, I've seen some that do like a combination of both, running All Is Dust and stuff like that, and running Ulamog, some bigger creatures in there, and not opting for any Planeswalkers. They feel that they don't need them in there. They can run Batterskulls and things like that instead. So this is one of those lists that's kind of like a hybrid between those. Again, running Walking Ballista, running the Endbringers there, not opting for the Basilisk Collar for this, but I do think that it is something that you should consider. If you're going to be running this sort of style, that's where you need to go. Again, the play set that we'd expect to see, Thought Knot, Reality Smasher, and Matter Reshaper. But this is Singleton Ulamog, and it is running that Singleton Sanctum of Ugin again, just to be like, alright, well, I have these cards, I have these Ugins, maybe I'll just go find an Ulamog to just end the game if they don't. But these are just extra ways to help out, have some more interactions with your opponents, being able to single target things down with this. Ugin helps with some board wipes, just some extra damage there. So definitely something to consider if you're thinking about it, going, well, you know what, why not try out, I have that Ugin lying around, why not try it in this list kind of thing. And it's a pretty good card. I've seen people run them in their sideboards and stuff. But you should be running the Ghost Quarters in yours, and if you have access to a Crucible of Worlds, I would recommend picking it up, playing it in the sideboard for this, because it's nice to have that extra interactions against kind of the mirror matchups, or if you're playing against regular Tron. And a lot of these 3-color decks are not having very many basics, so if you can just keep them off of their lands, it works out really well. You can see this list, of course, gearing his sideboard for his meta, having 3 Dragon's Claws in his board to kind of deal with those red decks. But Ratchet Bombs, things like that, Dismembers, extra removal in there. This is, again, kind of consistent, but Chalice of the Void is this really sweet card that you're going to see in these lists, and something that you have to be prepared against. It's very easy to drop them down on 1-2 mana in the first couple of turns by having access to Tron. But it can even go bigger and be able to drop things down up to 4 or 5 mana if need be. So that's something you guys have to be careful of. Be aware that that is something that you will have to face. Now this is kind of, again, like that hybrid we were talking about here, having that Planeswalkers access into it. Karn's in his list, going to be running the normal play set. 3 Endbringer, 4 Walking Ballista, because it does have that Basilisk Collar in the main there. All Is Dust, another great sweeper to have. Does not work against other Eldrazi. Does not work against any artifact creatures. So, sorry. Anything else, yeah, works out great. So, something to consider there. But, we do see, again, the Basilisk Collar. I think if you're going to run the Tron, Eldrazi Tron, you need to be running Basilisk Collar now. It just makes perfect sense to just kill off all creatures thing. And this is our player opting for the Ulamog in the sideboard, but does have that option to bring it in if need be. So, you know, Ratchet Bomb's a sweet one that you're going to be seeing in these sort of lists here. They will have Graveyard Hate with relics and stuff, but just kind of varies on where they want to go. But you've seen pretty much very similar cards across all three of these lists that I've shown you. Like, the creatures are pretty much the same, but a lot of it is the flexibility for their spells and their sideboard, because a lot of that stuff you will see just kind of rotate based on the meta, based on what their shop looks like, you know, different things like that. And that's something to keep in mind of what sort of decks are popping up in your area. Do you need that single target stuff? Do you need things like just members, cards in yours? Cool. Why don't you run those? If you need more board sweepers, run All Is Dust. Sit there and run Ugin. You know, there's lots of different things that you can be able to run based on yours. And you see this player, of course, needing a lot more protection against red with the Dragon's Claws. But Batterskull, Basilisk Collars, Chalice of the Voids are usually kind of the main stuff that you'll be seeing along these sort of lists. So be aware that they are very tough to deal with as a creature-based deck, because it's got this hate built into it. So keep that in mind when you're playing in it. It's actually a really good strategy to play because it goes over top of so many decks. You know, if you're playing your creatures on curve, sitting here, okay, here's a 4/4, you know, here's a 3/2, here's a 4/4, and then here's a 5/5. Like, you're curved out nicely. You have ways to just kind of kill off all their creatures with Endbringers, with Walking Ballistas and stuff. So definitely something you need to be worried about if you're playing a creature-based strategy. They just kind of stomp over top of you. So those are all Eldrazi Tron lists. They're pretty, you know, interesting take on the way that the modern meta has shaped up to be. Now, the other strategy that's not as much of, all right, here's this one big dumb dude, or here's two big dumb dudes, I'm just going to keep swinging in. This is a go wide strategy, and that is our Bant Eldrazi list. Now, again, Thought-Knot Seer, Reality Smasher, consistent things that we're going to be seeing. This list, though, because it is a Bant list, so that means blue, green, and white are our color choices there. It's going to have a lot wider range of lands that it needs to run. It's going to have some fetches in here, some shocks, that kind of normal stuff, but has to run the pain lands because there's times where you need to cast those blue and green spells, and then there's times where you're going to need that waste mana. Also, it is one of those decks that is running Cavern of Souls, so you're going to have to be careful about that. It's not the cheapest deck. But so we've talked about our kind of normal creature base that we're going to see. The playset does run some ramp with Noble Hierarch. Also can work well if you have to switch gears and go for that Pierce strategy. Say, okay, here's just this one guy going in. Does have some evasion added into it because it runs our Sky Spawners here. Of course, 2/1. When he enters the battlefield, you put a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion on there. Again, trying to go wide, making some extra guys. And it's a 2/1 flyer. So that is nice. Could be swinging in for 3 every turn with a flyer if you have that Noble out. Also, we're going to have our Displacer, which allows us to flicker our creatures. So, hey, that Sky Spawner there, you got 1 Scion out of it? Well, you can get yourself a second one, pay 3, exile another target creature, returns to battlefield tapped under its owner's control. Also can work if your opponent moves to combat and going to be attacking. Cool, alright, I'm going to flicker this guy out, and guess what? He's not going to be attacking. Now he's entering the battlefield tapped. Sorry. Drowner of Hope is our big guy that you'll see. Some lists go bigger than him, but for the most part, that's the consistent way that you'll see a lot of our Bant Eldrazi's lists go for. 6 mana, 5/5, makes 2 Scions off of him, and then you can sack one of those and tap a target creature. So, again, having your Sky Spawner, having your Drowner of Hope, and having your Displacer, you can just blanket the board and just tap everything down and swing in and kill somebody. So that's the nice aspect of it. Can go wide. You can just be like, all right, now I'm going to just sit here and flicker this Drowner of Hope, make more tokens, pass turn, tap your dudes, okay? flicker it again, make more tokens. Just sit there and build up until you feel comfortable enough to go, okay, well, now I've got 2 more Reality Smashers on the board. Let's just go and kill them. So there are those aspects. Now, the advantage to going for the Bant list, besides this sort of go wide strategy, are the spells that it has access to. Engineered Explosives is a kind of consistent card you'll see in these sort of lists because, again, you have access to multiple colors of mana, which it needs for that Sunburst. So it does have that to kind of be aware of, that it does well against those kind of go wide strategies as well. Because, hey, if you're playing tokens, you're playing fish, you're playing affinity, cool, I'm going to blow up all your stuff. Now, this Engineer Explosive is nice against affinity, where all is dust and things like that do not hit. Again, does have some abilities to draw cards, has some graveyard hate in there. Some lists do run the Talisman, some extra mana, Ram, things like that, but these are the 2 big ones to run Bant. Do you like Path to Exile? Sweet. Do you like having Ancient Stirrings and being able to find up a land, find up one of your creatures that you need? Because, again, all of your Eldrazi are devoid, so they have no color, so Ancient Stirrings does find those. Another thing that it can run is access to white, blue, and green in the sideboard. So things like Worship is in there, Blessed Alliance we'll see, Stony Silence, Rest in Peace, Thragtusk. We've seen Negates, Disdainful Strokes, lots of different cards that were not available with the Eldrazi Tron, which is just straightforward. Here's my colorless stuff, here's my big dumb dudes. That's what I've got. So that's a nice little aspect if you want to go for a more control-y route, if you will, for playing a creature deck. So here's a couple other lists to talk about. You know, does have access to some single target if need be. You know, very consistent again with the creature base that it's going to be running, having that flicker effect. But did want to talk a little bit about some of the cards that you have that are flex that you can go. Stubborn Denial is definitely something to be scared of because it's very easy for these decks to have Ferocious, because Thought Knot, Reality Smasher, and Drowner of Hope all are 4 or greater power. So very easy to just say, okay, here's 1 blue, and I'm going to counter target non-creature spell. Easy. Basically, you know, a way to kind of interact with the mirror if you're playing against a lot of decks that are running non-creature spells. Pretty much every deck out there. Some, you know, artifact removal here, Hurkyl's Recall. So again, you can tweak your decks based on the meta that you're running into. So, do have another aspect. This one is a little bit of a mana ramp strategy. You'll see like some variants on our number of lands that our players are running, like 22, 23. Usually it'll be around this time, but this list in particular I wanted to highlight because it is running not only Noble, which is, again, you're going to be wanting to run it if you're running Bant Eldrazi, but it is also running Elder Deep Fiend, which is a really cool card in here. Again, one of the ways that it can win is by making a bunch of guys and tapping down your stuff. You can also tap down stuff with your Displacer, so you like that tap effects. Here's just another one. Cost 8 mana for a 5/6 with Flash. You can also emerge it for 7 if you pay 5 and 2 blue. So that's pretty nice. You have to sack a creature when you do the emerge cost. Hey, guess what? If you're making all these Scions, it's easy to do that. Now, when you cast him, you tap up to 4 target permanents. So that could be lands, it could be creatures, whatever. So you can say, well, it's your end step. On your end step, I'm going to flash in this Elder Deep Fiend, and then I'm going to tap down your 2 creatures and your 2 lands that you've been keeping up. And then I'm going to swing in and I'm going to kill you during my turn. So it's running 2 in that list there. You see it only running 3 Drowner of Hope for this. So a little bit of different. Also running a Singleton Talisman. Again, we're talking about the ramp. Birds, Noble, Talisman to help you out. This list is also running 2 Blessed Alliance in the main board. Again, having that flexibility to run these awesome white cards based on what the meta is like. If you're like, well, I'm playing a lot of Death Shadow or something like that, I need extra ways to deal with it because that's a tough deck. Now, if I'm playing against kind of the normal Jund, normal Abzan, I don't have that much problem, but, well, you could just kill me straight up with a single Death Shadow. If I've been using all my paths and all my spells against your Goyfs and stuff like that, and you've been stripping away my creatures from my hand, well, I need just an extra thing, and that's a great way to do it. Blessed Alliance also has some access to some life gain, and you can untap some of your creatures. So if you swing in and you're low on life and you want to try to, you know, have a gotcha moment kind of thing, and they're swinging in with a lot of guys, you can untap your guys and do some blocks and stuff like that. Now, this list is not as consistent with running Chalice of the Void. A lot of the Chalice lists are going to be the Tron. So, because it's dangerous, a lot of times you want to cast Chalice on 1 or 2. And a lot of the 1 stuff is, of course, your Ancient Stirrings, your Path to Exiles and stuff. So it is something that you have to be careful of. But these lists have access to worship. So if you end up having Bant Eldrazi versus Eldrazi Tron, a lot of times the Eldrazi Tron deck can end up winning that just by having access to things like worship and extra spells available to it. So really cool. It does, of course, have, you know, ley lines and things like that. Again, a lot of the really good blue, white, and green stuff that you're going to see across the board that you need for sideboard stuff, this deck has access to. So again, wanted to talk about some big dumb dudes, and this is kind of 2 of the decks that do that so well. And Addy's going to continue to hang out and whack me with his tail here. So I hope you guys have been enjoying these modern meta breakdowns. This is, of course, week number 5. We're going to be bouncing around. Again, there's so many more decks to talk about in the modern meta. Let me know if there's other ones that you'd like to see. We've been going through quite a bit. There's a whole playlist set up for it now for 4 weeks. Like I said, we've been doing this. We have a lot of other projects that we've been working on with Modern Magic Mondays. Every Monday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, over at twitch.tv/Modern Magic Mondays. You can also check out the YouTube for all past and previous VODs that you guys might have missed over this period. We have a podcast now that is set up on iTunes and SoundCloud. Just simply search Modern Magic Mondays. We did one about Modern Master 2017. We're also going to be doing some draft videos and stuff like that soon, so you guys can check those out. But if you guys enjoyed this, make sure you're subscribed and hit the follows, all that kind of good stuff. And I'll see you guys next game.